It's a lot of work, and there's lots of times that you want to give up, but there's also so many times like it's validating when you see the first guest come through and like the joy in the children's eyes. Like it is so fun to make the world a little bit more fun and a little bit better, even if it's just one house at a time.
What's up, everybody? My name is Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host
Emmanuel Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's up, B?
My brother. So good to see you. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
I don't know how you guys are doing, but I feel like the year is just, everything is kind of cramming to the last minute. Like,
yes.
I have so many things going on everywhere, and literally, but I was meditating yesterday and I kind of had a feeling that I'm like, wait, I feel like everybody is kind of having this energy, because I'm like, I could feel it. And it's just not like anxiety per se, but I'm just like, there is so many things to do and so many things happening at the same time that I'm always like, I'm kind of just like, just deep breaths and trying to like plan 2022 and review 2021. And I'm like super grateful. Like it's been a crazy year. Like I think everybody that I know and that I love has had amazing years, myself included. So I have so much to be grateful for, but it's just like, I want to plan 2022, but I'm like, there's so much shit to do in 2021. I'm like, I don't have any time.
Amen.
Right? Okay, good. So it is a worldwide energy that I'm feeling. So yeah, man. Having said that, do you want to tell us how you're doing?
Yeah, no, it's the same. And hopefully it's a sign that like we practice what we preach, right? Because a few weeks ago, we talked about how most people take this time and they just coast through the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
The successful people that I know double down when everybody else is sleeping. So I find myself, same thing. It's almost like every year I'm getting another deal or pushing the envelope on a bigger deal right around year end, because there tends to just be more opportunities because everybody else is just kind of cruising through the end of the year and they're already focused on 2022. Like 2021 was already done. I'm just thinking about 2022, but this is the time when you can really double down. And yeah, it might feel a little overwhelming in the moment, but if you just wade the storm, man, like that's where we make real progress every year. So
yeah. And then I like to think about, we have a lot of friends and some of them spend more time on their mind and spiritual journey than others. And a good friend of ours, Harry Sherwood, has a whole community. And when I tell him, I'm like, Harry, I feel overwhelmed. He's like, overwhelmed is a choice, is a defense mechanism that you have, right? And so every time I tell myself I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, am I feeling overwhelmed, or am I just trying to like protect myself against like kind of pushing right now, right? Because I think also that's the thing, right? Every time you accomplish something, after a little bit, you get that, I should be kind of comfortable. And so like keeping yourself, right, constantly growing and challenging yourself. I think that's where sometimes you label it as overwhelm, but it's a choice, you know?
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that today with our guests, who I'm super excited to introduce, because one of the things we talked about offline is like, when you commit to the strategies that she's implemented and what I'm currently implementing, you just got to commit and you go all in. And it can feel very scary at first because you're putting a lot on the line. But if you do it right and you commit and you just get through it, you know, the light is really bright on the other side. We'll just put it that way. So, without further ado, today on the show, we have Bryndee Barton with us. So she is the co-founder and design manager of Loma Homes. She started her first real estate company in 2013, along with her husband, Kyle. And what started as a side gig of duplexes turned into full-time businesses, flipping houses, creating vacation rentals and developing larger multifamily deals, Her specialty is managing large reconstruction projects remotely. She's successfully managed and completed projects across 7 different states. She now focuses on Loma Home vacation rental development, creating premium, extreme themed homes for guests to get an immersive experience that leaves them with an unforgettable memory. And I'm super pumped. Like, I think Bart introduced us a couple months ago to get this set up for the show. And I was like, this is perfect timing because I am literally doing this right now. So Bryndee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So you got into the real estate game back in 2013. Tell us a little bit about what was going on with that and what got you into real estate. And then how did that evolve into the vacation rental space?
Yeah, so I just started in traditional real estate. My husband and I were fresh out of college and in corporate America, like unrelated to real estate. And we decided to get into a duplex where we live in one side and rent out the other because it was like free rent. And we thought, oh, this is great. And then that real estate bug just bit us. And we did a bunch of education and kind of got into the long-term rentals and apartments. And we got into flipping houses. And then funny enough, our now business partner, Jeff, came to us because we were living in his basement. We had just moved to Utah and we're looking where to buy a house or whatnot. So we rented his basement and he knew that we were flipping houses and doing real estate remotely. So I was traveling all the time, going different places. And he is a data geek and did a bunch of research and decided that he wanted to do a vacation rental because it would be the best return on his investment. And then he did research and found the best area at that time was Joshua Tree, California. So he came to us and was like, hey, I want to do vacation rental in Joshua Tree, California, but I don't know much about real estate. I don't know anything about Joshua Tree, but I know you guys do this out of state. Can you make me one? And we're like, sure. And then we're like, where's Joshua Tree? Like, we've never even heard of the place, which is kind of funny now because it's all the rage. But 2 weeks later, we drove down there and we started house hunting and getting to the market because once you know how to do real estate remotely, it's all about getting to know the market and creating the right product or the right real estate market house for that. So so Jeff hired us to do one vacation rental and it kind of just let one thing to another, went really well. And we started a whole business out of it now.
I love it. And before we even pivot to the vacation rental side of things, one thing that I've talked about and a lot of questions that I get asked is, like you, we're in a bunch of different states right now. We're in 4 different states and everybody's like, well, how do you do that? And what I always say, and I want to get your take on this, is the principles are the same, whether it's next door or it's further away. It's just outside of your comfort zone. And it forces you to have really tight systems and a really good team because you can't be there to band-aid everything together if it doesn't go right. So how has your experience been with that? And I'm sure you made some mistakes like I did along the way. But could you talk about that for a minute about doing it remotely?
Yeah, for sure. And it has its challenges and its benefits, and it's something we still continually are fine tuning. It definitely makes you lean on your team better. And that has its headaches initially because you get some bad apples while trying to find the good ones. But the good thing about making it lean on the team is it does help you to like separate a little bit because I travel a lot. And so that's getting the properties up and going and designing and managing construction, that requires me to travel a lot. But I also think if I was there all the time, it would just suck me in where I am going to be the person responding to the 2 a.m. call because I'm there and I decide I want to do that. So it's kind of nice to separate yourself a little bit. If you create the systems, it forces you to build a good team, find the right people who are boots on the ground. You still want to make sure you're really close to what's going on. For example, we self-manage all of our properties remotely because we have a very high expectation of what we want our guest experience to be. So we do like to micromanage everything from the communication to the cleanings, the turnovers, obviously the designs. So we do everything in-house, but then we hire boots on the ground that we're managing. So that way the full guest experience is there. So yes, it's hard, but it's possible if you find the right people. And there's definitely like checklists and accountability that you have to create to make sure that your properties are staying well kept, because it's very easy to hire a property manager and have it just fall apart too.
For sure. And just on that topic, any tips you can give people to help them vet out those contractors, maybe based on your experience?
This is still one of our hardest things too.
Like your boots on the ground, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You can do as much research as possible and still have problems, but you do want to do your due diligence. So the best place to start is references. If you know anybody in the area, start asking around, because if someone else had a good experience, that betters your odds than a random person. But if you don't have any references, then we like Google and start looking at reviews, talk and just call around and interview. We like to talk to multiple people and actually interview them with specific questions of like how we want things managed, make sure they're on the same page of what we do for our branding and what we want in our company. And then we like to meet them usually in person too. So make sure that they, I don't know, just check out with what, if they're representing our company and being the boots on the ground, it's how they present themselves in person. It's how well they do their job, whatever that is, whether it's cleaning or maintenance. But there's not really a magic pill. I wish there was, because it'd make our life a lot easier too. I think you just ask as many questions as you can, call their references or talk to people who worked with them, and then kind of trial them before you commit long-term.
That was the last thing that I was going to add is what we tend to do is we like to give them like a little project and see how they do before we unleash the whole thing on them. So
yep.
Even like this week, I have somebody from my team down there just checking in on everything. And instead of just hiring one contractor to help build furniture and everything else, we hired 3, which maybe cost me a little bit more, but it's a test. So if if they do well, or one of them does well, okay, great. Now I have his cell phone and maybe he could be like a regular handyman for me down there. Right. So like just giving little test projects that way.
We have 5 houses under construction in Panama City Beach at the same time. And we used 4 different contractors because we wanted to test them and figure out, this is the quickest way to figure out who's our favorite to use in the future, or so we can build our team and get like, hey, these are the 2 best ones or whatnot. And obviously you want to be conscious and not just like waste people's time, like make it worth it. But it's good to, trial and error.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like I was cutting you off.
No, but you asked all the questions. Like every question that I had in mind, I wrote down, and you literally asked them all.
Sorry,
which is great, but I think what's a question that I had in mind that you haven't really kind of like touched on is when you're looking for that boots on the ground person is going to be kind of like the overall kind of team player. I assume you have one that is kind of like not really maintenance, not really cleaning. Like, do you have somebody like that? It's what category do you look for them in? And what I mean by that is like, what kind of people have you seen over time actually work best for that kind of like, not cleaning necessarily, but the guy that can kind of like run to Target or like go buy some stuff, go to IKEA, like an overall player?
Yeah, so we've tried a few different options, and it's hard when you only have 1 or 2 properties to get someone who is committed to being there for you on call, because you're not providing enough for a full-time job. So we found the hardest part was our first couple of properties, because we didn't have enough work to warrant someone to be committed. They go find another job and they don't last very long. But what we call them like home inspectors, and they inspect the home. They also will help with like if we need to set up for a birthday party that's been purchased, or go run and get a coffee machine at 10 o'clock at night because there's an angry guest or whatever. So we just put very specifics on our job listing, and we like I said, that person's kind of like a home inspector, because they keep accountable the cleaners, make sure things are ready for the guests. We like to have them go in and check before each guest check-in. And we've actually been recently developing an app and stuff so that the cleaners use it to check off their list, and then they have a full accountability with the home inspector goes in and uses it to, I can't remember the exact points number, but there's a ton, like 30 different checkpoints that they have to pass, and our cleaners actually get graded and paid based on how well they do. So this is a new system we're implementing to help hold it accountable, because we found that just hiring people didn't really do the trick, that we have to actually do more to have that housekeeper keep accountable to cleaners, because a cleaner by themselves wasn't doing much.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to like, if you listen to what Bryndee's saying, like she's experienced now, she's got a bunch of units. It's constantly refining your processes, because if you just kind of rest on your laurels and just try and coast, eventually stuff breaks. So like as the CEO
Yeah.
or whatever you call yourself running your business, you always want to analyze your operations, because at the end of the day, if the guests don't have a good experience, I don't care how cool your house is, it's not going to matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a process, and you just take it one at a time. It seems really overwhelming, but like tackle an issue and say, how can we do this better? And then another one comes up, and do the most planning you can. But it's not going to be perfect from the beginning. 2 years in, and we're still fine tuning and improving and hiring new people.
100%, 100%. And so why don't we pivot a little bit to kind of the topic of like extreme themed houses and like what that is and what got you thinking to do that? And maybe talk about that first deal.
Yeah. Well, kind of like I talked about with Jeff hiring us on the first one for Joshua Tree, we initially had no thoughts about like extreme themes. We were just like, okay, our goal is to go flip a house and we're just going to make it pretty and rent it out. But when we went down to Joshua Tree, we saw the local vibe. And it's like a bohemian artsy town. It's near like Coachella and music festivals. There's lots of rock climbers, and it's kind of this like bohemian hippie wonderland. And we talked to local agents, looked at different Airbnbs that were successful. And it came down to, if we want to do good in this market, you have to stand out and you got to provide the experience that those guests want. And in that area, they wanted a hippie, fun, like glamping experience. So we bought 5 acres with a dome house that was like 1,000 square feet on it. And when we did our data crunching, we knew that we needed to be able to sleep a lot of people. And there weren't any houses that were large, let alone unique and large. So we bought a 1,000 square footer, but then got a whole bunch of trailers, gutted them, turned them into detached bedrooms and stuck giant art murals on the outside, and then did a bunch of hammocks and a pool and like outdoor entertainment stuff. All of it was colorful. We used local artists it was just this like hippie wonderland, and it did really well. It outperformed double what we were projecting, and that's kind of what bit the bug. Is like, hey, if we do this well and we stand out, we can kill the competition. So the same concept went for Florida. We decided not to do anything else in California for just their legal and politics are not super friendly for business owners. So we sold that property and we do not do anything there currently. So we looked for another market, and Florida kept popping up as a good vacation rental. Obviously, Orlando's a huge tourist place, but there's a million different vacation rentals. So you have to stand out. So we just looked at all the top performing ones. We bought all the data from AirDNA and Price Labs and whatnot. And we just do a lot of data analysis on what makes properties stand out. So when we went to Orlando initially, once again, we didn't think we were going to build like smoke breathing dragons. That wasn't really the plan. It was more of, we just know we need to get into this market and be the best in this market. So find what other people are doing and then do it better. The people who are doing well were theming their properties out, and a lot of them not very well. So we're like, hey, we can do that, and we can even do it to the next level. And that's kind of how we ended up getting the extreme themes, was just because we followed the numbers and figured out what the way to be most successful was.
Love it. Sorry, I got to turn off all my notifications here.
No, but great. I would like for you to go into what does that like looking at numbers, because obviously like I am not that person, right? Like that's not what I do. I stay very local to my market, and I know my numbers in my own market a lot based on like experience. And then like I take advantage of all the like AirDNAs and whatnot, just to make sure that I'm like remaining educated. But my market is very different, right? Like I don't plan on ever moving out of South Florida. I have my economy of scale here. So my model and your guys' model is a little bit different, right? But I know a lot of people that ask me like, how do you find a market? How do you find the next market, right? So what does that, can you walk us through what that looks like for you? And like, what are the numbers that you look at? And maybe what are some numbers that like you thought were important at the beginning, but actually it's like, no, really all I care about is this and this. And then if these two things make sense, everything else is good.
So there's 2 numbers that really matter when you're picking a market. One is the cost of the property. The other one is the amount of revenue it's going to bring in. So cost of the property, you can obviously look at Zillow, look at, that'll even get pulled in some AirDNA reports and whatnot. Like you just need to dive in like you're just working with a realtor and find out how much it's going to cost if I'm going to buy a X number of bedrooms house in this market. And then you compare that to AirDNA and Price Lab data of what the annual revenue is. So you just look at those ratios, and obviously you want the biggest spread from the lowest cost house to the highest revenue. And we pull a lot of data and then kind of rank them and figure out where the top spread is. Because, for example, we have beach houses that we do in Destin, Florida. And the bang for your buck there is much higher than California. If you go to California and you want to get a big beach house, it's going to cost millions of dollars for like a 3-bedroom house. Versus in Florida, in Destin area, it's a good getaway, but you can get one that's like a block from the beach for $500,000 or $700,000. And the actual revenue in that California property versus the Florida property is almost the same. So you're making the same amount of revenue, but you get in at a third the price. So those are the ratios that we look at, and we just kind of rank our markets by that. And it's not just about numbers too. You have to look at like the legal regulations and stuff like that too, because that will determine your business success.
Yeah. Do you have a rule of thumb on the, like, you know, how, and I'm sure you know, because your background as a real estate investor, right? Like, so you have the 1% rule. As a lot of guys, a lot of seasoned investor, long-term investor buy and hold at like the 1%. And it's the easy kind of like napkin math that you can do in your head, be like, yes, no. Do you have that now for your?
Yep, we have
market?
a 20%. Yeah, we do a 20% rule. So the annual revenue should be 20% of the purchase and renovation combined.
Boom. I'm glad somebody else verified that, because we were talking about that and somebody was like, could you do a rule of thumb? And I was like, based on my experience, if it can gross about 20% of the purchase price, like done, it's a solid deal. So you are the only other person I've heard say that. So I'm glad I'm on the right track. So,
I haven't heard anybody else say that, actually. We kind of developed that. I mean, I'm sure that I'm not the first person who invented it, but that's kind of what we've decided. And honestly, it's hard. 20% is ambitious. So you got to dig for the deals.
Mm-hmm. No, but I think that is like a great rule of thumb, right? Because like now I'm looking at all the properties that like we have looked at like the one that John closed on recently. And it's like, kind of like it's right there without me like knowing about the rule. I'm like, oh shit, I should do that. And I'm like, hey, oh yeah, that's exactly what it makes, right? So I think that's great, because I think especially if you're like somebody that likes numbers, I think that gives you a good rule of thumb, especially like if you're like out and about, you can check something kind of quick to know if it works for you. What are some of the things that you guys look at in the sense of like, how do we make this place better? So like what extreme are we talking about? Because like I can imagine things, but I also tend to have a very vivid imagination.
I want to plug the website real quick.
Yeah,
so
please.
If you're driving, don't do this, but when you stop,
absolutely do it. It's gonna be worth you crushing.
LomaHomes.com, Bryndee?
It's Loma-Homes.com.
So check it out and you'll understand what we're talking about. Like extreme themed of like,
what is it?
Kidding, like the dragon, like
it's Loma-Homes.com. Can I share my screen on here?
Yeah.
I can look it up.
But for the podcast listeners, you guys are going to have to check this out on YouTube so that you can actually see your screen here.
Okay, I have, excuse my million tabs, but you can see my
the only way we can be friends. If you don't have a million tabs, we can now be friends. That's not.
Do you see my screen right now then?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So we focus on two areas, and your question is like, what do you do, or how do you like know what to build? And the number one question there that guides you is, what does the guest want? So what you're going to build in Orlando is different than what you're going to build in California versus what you're going to build in like the Smoky Mountains, because someone who's coming to theme parks wants a theme experience. And so we are creating a theme park for them to sleep in, essentially. So you can see this one is Wizard's Way. And we have like special light effects. We have sound effects. We have this train right here actually blows, like it's a humidifier that blows smoke, and it makes train noises. On the other side of this, there's actually interactive things. Kids can drive the train and play with it. So we try to make it as fun and family like centered as possible, because people who are coming to Orlando, in our target market especially, are going to the theme parks, and they're looking for an experience and memories to build with their family and their children. We
that
go for
picture is insane. Like I'm like, I have it like full screen on my other screen, and like the little kid in me is like absolutely excited.
It
So for
roars
the
too.
podcast listeners, we're staring at a bedroom that has a dragon coming out of the wall that is blowing smoke. So
Like
it's
insane.
I can just imagine this room having so many pranks because by the bed, there's a button that breathes the fire and smoke. And, you know, like mom and dad are sleeping and the kids come in and press the button and terrify them awake. So
This
I haven't
looks
seen that happen,
amazing.
but in my mind, I imagine that when we were creating it, it kind of made me giggle. So I hope it has happened.
That's awesome. Okay, so how do you go about this? So like you're the designer, so like these are your designs, like your
Yeah.
ideas, and then you have a local team of people that help you.
Yeah, so it's actually not even local all the time. We work
Oh.
with contractors that build out theme parks and haunted houses and laser tags like that. And we work for a couple of different ones, and they are out of state. So they build everything remotely in their warehouses and they bring it in. But then we work with local contractors who do the normal construction, like flooring and backsplash and painting the non-themed sections and stuff like that. So it's kind of a mix, but it's a huge project. And it all starts with, like I said, we do a lot based on what the guest wants. So we run data. Once again, our company is very data driven. We run data on like what are the most popular like toys and children and family topics and stuff like that. And obviously there are the theme parks to go off of here. So you've got Disney, you've got Galaxy's Edge, you've got Universal, and you have to be very careful because you can't just copy things either. Like you'll notice that we avoid licensing, or like you won't see specific brands in it, but you can kind of get inspiration from different other popular items for families and theme off of that. And I just kind of talk to people who are fans of the different themes and say, like, for example, we made a dinosaur house. So I talked to people who had kids with dinosaurs, like, what are your favorite dinosaurs? And like, if you could sleep in a dinosaur house, what would that look like? And so I love to like actually do almost like focus groups or interviews with people who are our target market to find out what they want. We also do a lot of Instagram surveys and stuff too, to determine what the best theme houses and source it from there. And then I just come up with how to design their dream house.
Yeah. I love it because I think like, to me, what becomes evidence the more episodes we've done, right? And like by now we've done a lot of episodes, is like that really the people that make it, and not surprisingly really, is the people that like make an effort, right? So like the effort in your pictures is like evident, right? And the effort in like understanding how you went about it, it's evident, right? Like there is no arguing, like you're like, because that's the thing with this, that it's like also beautiful, is like if you want to do a vacation rental for one house that kind of pays for itself, you don't have to do all of the shit, right? Like let's be honest, right? Like you don't have to go above and beyond. But if you want to make a business and retire yourself and make money, this is what the market is now, right? Especially in like super competitive markets like Orlando, right? Like you don't have, how are you going to compete with Mike and with this if like, you know, if you just have your things from like IKEA with the same picture with the hanging jungle thing that everybody has from IKEA, like there's no competition.
If you go to a big market and you don't stand out, you'll get eaten alive, because there's just so many options out there that you have to be the best. You have to do everything from the design. You have to be strategic on how you do your listings, that it's like optimized for search engines, and you have to do the extra mile, or else it's a waste of your time and money and you won't even break even. Like in Orlando, there's such a spread. There's a lot of people who lose money doing it because they think, oh, it's easy. Everybody goes to Orlando. All I have to do is buy a house and turn it into a vacation rental. That won't make you money. You have to do it strategically, especially in the big markets. So you got to look at what people are doing successfully and do it. And to be honest, it is so much harder than I anticipated to go like all in. It's a lot of fun and it's worth it. And the effort pays off in better returns and everything. But it is like a full-time job to go this in, which is why we do it full-time.
Yeah. So did you ever have like a horror story, like of what I imagine like is my like 11:30 eating like a Jimmy John sandwich, building IKEA furniture for like one of these houses that you're like, that is not worth it, like that like ran down in tears moment that you're just like, there's people coming like the day after tomorrow, like I can't, like, that place smells like I can't, like, have you ever had a place that just smells like boxes? Like, then you take out all the boxes and it just smells like the IKEA warehouse, and you just like, I don't know, I probably shouldn't do this for a living anymore. Like, this is not what I should do for a living.
all the time. There are those moments all the time, and not to scare people away.
No, but it's the truth. Like, that's what I want. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I ask it, right?
In perspective, right now I'm actually on site of a Princess Castle house we're building. I flew in yesterday, got there to the airport like 2, and then met with contractors all day and was busy all day. And then I was working till 1:30 last night, then had to get up at like 6:30 to keep doing it. And that's like doing that every day for like a month is how this works. You're just doing late nights, you're fixing problems, you're trying to get the house ready, and it's just so many moving puzzle pieces that it's a lot of work. And there's lots of times that you want to give up, but there's also so many times like it's validating when you see the first guest come through and like the joy in the children's eyes. Like, it is so fun to make the world a little bit more fun and a little bit better, even if it's just one house at a time. And it's also fun when you get good paychecks.
yeah, that's the most fun. Everything else is like, yeah, that's cute, but like the most fun is when money hits the bank account. So I assume that with all of the work that you guys have done and are putting into this like 8-9 properties that I see here are not the end of it, right? Like, what's the vision? Where are you guys going? How big are you gonna go moving forward? Like,
yeah, our goal is 100 properties in the next 4 years. And we want to build our brand to be known as the premium vacation rental brand, like place to go for experiences. So you've got the Marriott, you've got the hotel chains, but there's not really a vacation rental brand. There's a lot of people who have a few of them, but we want to have multiple locations, all of them, you know what you're going to get. It's a fun experience, clean properties that are beautiful, and you can go throughout the US and get different experiences. So we're going to add in different locations. Right now we have the beach experience and the theme park experience. We're going to add like national parks and mountains and skiing and maybe like deserts. So that way we have within the Loma Homes brand a variety of like awesome memories and experiences for our guests.
I love that. One follow-up question for that. I love that vision. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is around, how do you fund these types of deals, right? And we were talking a little bit offline about this, of like, it's not just coming up with the down payment, right? Like, you have to put together a budget, which could be sizable to go to this extent. So you just have to know your numbers going into it. But from a funding standpoint, are you guys working with investors? Do you have bank relationships? Like, how does that work to go from 1 to 8 or 9 to 100? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so for our funding, we do mortgages on all of our properties. So they do have loans, but then, for example, in these themed ones, the extreme themed ones, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate. That's just cash out of pocket. A bank's not giving you money to build dragons. So we work with investors, and our investors get ownership into the properties, and then they get returns every quarter. And then also, if we sell the properties for a large profit at the end, they get returns at that point too. So it's that's kind of how our scaling is working. Is we create they're official like PPMs. So you actually invest into a few properties, so it's diversified for them. And it helps us grow our business, because if we were limited to just our cash, we'd still be at like one house.
so you guys made an investment fund, or what does that look like? Okay, got it. Yep. So you did an investment fund, and is that a 506B? So you raise from people that you know, or?
We have done both. So we do a new one every year. So last year we did a B, and this year we did a C. Okay. And so currently we're raising for our C, which for people who are not familiar with it, that's just a type of fund that allows you to do marketing and collect money from people who are not personal friends or family. But there's a lot of regulations around it as well. You have to be accredited. Yeah. So to invest with our company currently, you have to be an accredited investor, but you can get ownership into the homes, which is nice because it's actually secured and backed by real estate. Yeah. And they get profit splits.
Sorry, I'm just excited.
Go ahead.
And so you do an open fund. So you pretty much say, we're raising X amount of money for the year to buy X amount of properties.
Yeah. So every fund that you do legally has to say what they're investing in. And that's how we do it by year, because we can't just have it open-ended forever. It has to be this year. Like, so the current fund is funding 7 properties, and then next year is going to be like 13 properties. And every year it grows more and more. Gotcha.
Do you already have the 7 identified, or is someone that open?
Yep. We have 6 that are already purchased. One of them is the Princess Castle that's underway. And then we have 5 of them that are under construction in Panama City Beach. In fact, we have 5 properties going live in the next month and a half. It's going to be a very busy, double down, as you said, Mike. So we have a very busy holiday season. I
love it. I love it. It's super smart. And I think, I mean, if you guys have been listening, I'm doing the same exact thing, buying an apartment building right now. So we just closed on a 29 unit apartment complex. We have another 18 under contract now. So it's just amazing to like understand. Again, it's just the more things you know, the more ways you know how to play this game. I think you're the very first person we have on the show that actually has a fund. I don't think we've had anybody else on the show with a fund. So super interesting.
And it's a really good way for people to get involved who maybe don't have the time to do it themselves, that they can still get, because of the fact that we take really high returning properties, they're able to make good money still when all they have to do is write a check. They're not involved with any of the day-to-day. They don't get calls at 2 a.m. So it's a very passive way for maybe people who are full-time professionals that want to dip their toes in.
Do you guys have a minimum for the investment?
Yeah, it does vary. Currently, the minimum is $150,000.
And one thing I just wanted to allude back for the folks that might be getting started is there's a lot of hype on the internet, especially in the multifamily space, about like, oh, you're just going to raise the money and do all that stuff. That's fine, but I'd highly suggest that you got to know what you're doing first. Right? So like, Bryndee's got some experience. She's got a bunch of doors down. So she has a track record of success. So if you have the means, start this yourself or start co-hosting and managing other people's properties till you build that track record. And then you can go out and start raising some money. Right?
That's a very valid point. We did 3 properties before we did the fund, and we did them one at a time. So like I said, the first one we were hired to do in Joshua Tree, that was like we were still flipping houses, doing other stuff, and it was one. And it was like, hey, that worked. And then we were like, let's test out Orlando. And Jeff, our partner, still had his full-time job. Kyle and I still had our full-time real estate business. And we tested, okay, we're going to pilot and test one property in Orlando and make sure it works. And then once we knew it worked, we decided to go all in. So take it slow and do it the right way, rather than just get gung-ho.
And that works the other way as well, right? So if you are a listener that has the money and it's listening to this is like, this would be great, but I don't have the time. There are operators that would take your money. Just make sure you ask the questions. And at the end of the day, like, it's your money, right? So like, you have to be accredited. You have to check mark a bunch of stuff. So it's not as easy for you to like give money away, right? Because the moment you do it right, it actually takes some time to actually get the money together and whatnot. But like, ask the questions. And the main question is like, how long have you been doing it? Right? Have you just done it? And the other thing that would be concerning now is have you just done it in the last 6 months? In the last 12 months? Because like that was the hardship that I had when I originally went to raise money for apartment buildings. People were like, you haven't been through any kind of hardship, right? The market has been good to you. The market is good. Like, you don't know how you would react, right? Now we have COVID and everything else. So we're like, I'm good. I've gone through the top, bottom, top again. Everything is great. So make sure that you ask those questions. If somebody's wanting to invest your money, make sure that they know what they've been through. We have a lot of friends that like, unless you have been through something, they just won't give you their money.
Yeah. And it is hard because on the first few properties, you may have to work with people who are investing in you, not necessarily the property. Like, you're going to have to do friends and family or work extra hard to find people to prove yourself. Then the more track records you get, the easier it is to raise money.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
100%.
people are always investing in you, but at the beginning, it's literally like it's gonna be grandma and grandpa and your mom.
Especially when you tell people you want to do a house full of spaceships and fog machines, they're like,
Yeah.
"What are you talking about? No one's done that before."
Yeah. My family would be like, "Okay, you're tripping. We're not doing this."
Yep.
I want to be respectful of your time. We've covered a lot of great stuff in here.
Oh,
And
wow.
Before we get to the last question, I want to acknowledge you for all of this. Like, this is amazing. I love what you're doing. And thank you for coming on here to share all of this value and really kind of open yourself up to share your experiences and give valuable tips to the listeners. One of the things that I love about the guests that we've had on the show and about this industry in general is I find everybody is it's a community and everybody's always willing to open up and share because there's just an abundance of properties. Like, I'm in the same market as you right now, right? But there's plenty of meat on the bone for everybody, right? And I just find everybody so giving, and it's just like a community that everybody wants to help each other. And that's one of the biggest things I love about this industry, where it's not like this crazy cutthroat stuff and whatever. So I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing all that awesome stuff. And one more time for the listeners, if you want to just put in the URL for the site and how they could get in contact with you.
Yeah, our website is www.loma-homes.com. And then you can also follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We do a lot on Instagram behind the scenes as I'm designing properties or we're sourcing like what we should do next. And that's just at Loma Homes, Loma is how you spell Loma. So we'd love to keep in touch, reach out, whether you're interested in just following along and see how we do it. Maybe you want to be a guest, maybe you want to be an investor partner. We love to chat. So reach out to us on our Instagram or our website if you'd like to ask any questions.
Love it. Love it. Well, the last question that we ask all of our guests is, what is your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
Our number one secret is probably what we've kind of talked about, is be unique. We really want to look at what people are doing good and figure out how to do it better. We often say, go big or go home. Like, if we're going to do it, we want to make sure that we're committed. And even if it's a lot of money, we want to be the best at it. And that's what pays off for us. And that's kind of what our whole brand is built around. And that's our secret sauce, is going big.
I love it.
I thought for a second you were gonna take us to like back in the day through like Game of Thrones. Is like you just gotta have dragons. That's that's the number one secret cooler. Is who has the most dragons wins. So you just gotta have dragons. But it's been amazing to have you. I loved all of your properties. I've literally looked through all of them just now. And I mean, I just want to acknowledge, because I know it takes a lot of balls to come up with this kind of project, put all of this on the line, do a fund, right? Like there's a next level of accountability that you have to get to for yourself to be able to go out there and ask people for money. And that can be scary at times. So I see all of that effort that also came through getting all these units live. So I'm really excited to see you get to those 100 units.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It's fun to be here and great to know you guys.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing week. We'll see you guys next week. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.